For our next problem, we have an equation that's quadratic in form. So let's solve x to the 2/3 minus 9x to the 1/3 plus 8 is equal to 0. Now I know it doesn't quite look like a quadratic equation, but if we do a little substitution, it will look like a quadratic equation. Now the reason I say it's quadratic in form is by looking at this middle term here. We have x to the 1/3 power. So if we let u equal x to the 1/3 power, then notice what happens. What happens if I take this u and I square it? Well, then I would have to square the right-hand side, x to the 1/3. And so therefore, u squared would equal, when I take x to the 1/3 and I square it, I multiply those exponents. 1/3 times 2 is 2/3. So u squared equals x to the 2/3 power. Now, notice what I have here. I have u equals x to the 1/3, and I'll substitute u in here in my original equation where I see x to the 1/3. Notice what else I have. U squared equals x to the 2/3. So I'll substitute u squared up in the original equation where I see x to the 2/3. And now let's rewrite our original equation. So I'm going to substitute u squared for x to the 2/3, and I'll have u squared minus, I have that coefficient 9. X to the 1/3 we decided was just u, plus 8 is equal to 0. Now, this does look like a quadratic equation. We can solve this by factoring. We'll set up our parentheses, and I'll have a u, it looks like minus 8 and minus 1 will work just fine. And if we check that, it sure does work. So we factored it correctly as u minus 8 times u minus 1 is equal to 0. Now let's set each factor equal to 0. If we set u minus 8 equal to 0, we get u is equal to 8. If we set u minus 1 equal to 0, we get u is equal to 1. But be careful now. We can't stop here because our original equation was given in terms of x. So we need to now go back and substitute the values we have. So if u is equal to 8, and we know u is the same thing as x to the 1/3, we'll substitute x to the 1/3 here for u. So x to the 1/3 equals 8 is the equation we need to solve. We can solve this equation by raising both sides to the 3rd power. When we raise x to the 1/3 to the 3rd power, 1/3 times 3 gives us 1, so we just have x equals 8 to the 3rd power is just 512. That's our first solution. For the second solution, we found out that u was equal to 1. Remember, u is the same thing as x to the 1/3. So this means x to the 1/3 is equal to 1. Again, we'll do the same thing, and we'll cube both sides of this equation. And on the left-hand side, we'll just have x equals, on the right-hand side, we'll just have 1. So now we have two solutions to our original equation, and the solution set is 512 or 1.